Welcome to POSTCAST. The Utah Jazz lose their fifth straight, this time to the Chicago Bulls, as DeMar DeRozan and the crew get it going in the second half. A brilliant first half offensively for the Jazz. Super three-point shooting, but 3 fatal turnovers in a row cost them a chance to come from behind. We're talking about it coming up on POSTCAST. David Locke along with Ron Boone here on POSTCAST tonight. And Ron, I look at the 3 possessions in, I think it was early fourth quarter, where the Jazz turn it over, lay up the other way, turn it over, lay up the other way, turn it over. Actually, not lay up the other way. This time they committed a foul, a breakaway foul, 2 free throws, and then I don't remember if they scored or not. But you just can't. The margin to win is not very big. You're not a superior team, so it's hard to win in this league. And if you make 3 mistakes like that in a row, it's awfully hard to win.
Yeah, you're in a close ball game, excuse me, and you must take care of the basketball. Excuse me.
That's all right. Choked up about it. I get it.
You must take care of the basketball, and your execution must be good. In other words, turning it over like that, just eliminates. You go from down 6 to down 9 or to down 10, and you just eliminate the possession that you need in order to win the basketball game.
Jazz were one of the best clutch teams in the league before the Mike Conley injury, but since then we've lost a close one to Golden State, close one to Detroit, close one to Phoenix, and this one went into clutch time as well. It is abundantly clear that late in games, the Mike Conley's absence is really, really clear. The Bulls were not a good clutch team. They were 1-8 coming in the clutch, and they dominated the final minutes of the game.
They really did, and I think it started a little bit there in that third quarter when the Bulls started to get into the lead that the Jazz had, and the momentum started to shift. The Jazz slowed down. And whenever they slow down like that, that's when you really miss, I think, Mike Conley, because he's the player that can get them in and make some things happen without, just dominating the basketball.
So this one's interesting. There's a bunch of little things that changed in this game. We're tied at 27 in the first. We're up 7 at the half, 60-53. The offense is rolling, and then it goes dry, right? Then the Jazz only score 47 second-half points, and really some of those were late, an Olynyk 3 at the buzzer. So really the Jazz score 44 points in the final 24 minutes of this game. What did the Bulls do? They are a good defensive team, 9th best in the league. What happened to the Jazz offense?
I think the Jazz in a games like that are their own worst enemies. I mean, because it's what the Jazz don't do. Because I don't think with the type of offense and the way the Jazz want to play, I don't think there's any team in the league that can keep them from putting them in position to score. Now, if they're missing shots, that's a different story. But, having to make tough shots in order to stay in the ball game, that's what the Jazz started getting into, especially when you start playing in the half-court offense. I like Sexton coming off the bench more so than starting in that starting role.
And I don't know what the other answer
there is
is
no other
right
option,
now, right? Like, unless I guess you could go to Beasley, but Beasley off the bench. And then you're telling Jordan, who had 9 assists tonight, so they clearly put the ball back in his hands. And frankly, I agree with you, and I would also say I thought this was the best reading of the floor game I've seen out of Colin Sexton all year, by a long shot, actually. He made 3 or 4 plays tonight that I don't usually see him make. He still, I'm sure if we went through the tape, missed a few too. Like, it's hard. And nobody expects him to be perfect. But I thought that he had 3 or 4 plays tonight that they're basic. They're one-level reads. They bring the defender to you, pass to the guy who the defender came to. But he wasn't making those, frankly, 2 weeks ago. So I thought there was a lot of progress there.
The progress that he's made, I totally agree with you, it's been remarkable. And he's really added something to his game. I know that he's had conversations with Will, and Will has been, helping him out. And maybe those glasses is helping him out there as well. But that player coming off the bench, just remember Jordan Clarkson a couple of years ago coming off the bench, that spark and his ability to score and make things happen in a short period of time was something the Jazz really had.
Yeah. And I think the Jazz agree with you, right? Because Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson started this year, which surprised everyone because that was exactly what they were trying to do with Colin Sexton. So
Correct.
the Jazz completely agree with you. By the way, Ron just mentioned the glasses. Really interesting. The Jazz Colin's been wearing glasses at practice, after practice, doing work with coaches that are strobing lights at him. The other night in San Francisco, he was working with Barnett Frank, one of the Jazz performance coaches, And he would pass on the ball and say shot, and he would have to quickly react, or drive and have to quickly react, or pass, or step back, and they were giving him an instruction, and he had to try to catch the ball while the distraction of the strobe lights were coming and then make the move that he was being told. Today they did something differently. Same glasses, I believe same strobing, and he was working on actual full plays. So he was coming off a pick and roll and had to read the defender in which then is he driving himself? Is he passing to the lob, or is he passing to the corner? And they were giving him different reads on every single time. So interesting to see the player development. And are those glasses working? I don't know, but Colin's last 2 games have been far better in Phoenix and here making reads. Interesting move tonight. The Jazz defensive rebounding has been a problem. They're 29th in the league in defensive rebounding. It was a massive issue in the fourth quarter in Phoenix. And so we were very concerned coming in. One of our storylines of the broadcast coming in was Andre Drummond, who at 5 different years in his NBA career averaged over 5 offensive rebounds a game. One of the greatest offensive rebounders in the history of the league. So he comes in. What does Will Hardy do?
He goes and tries to find the biggest and strongest guy, the big man that the Jazz have. He brings in Udoka, and he comes in, and I think he did a fairly good job. But Drummond's been around a while. He's been an all-star. Ended up with 10 rebounds, 4 of those coming on the offensive glass.
And what did you think of Udoka Azubuike in his 14 minutes tonight?
Well, I think those are some minutes that he could probably give the Jazz because the Jazz need help. I know Olenek and Markkanen are 7-footers and they're stretch players, but they're not the strong physical player down in the paint. And probably Udoka doesn't get pushed around as easy. Maybe down going forward, he might be able to start working himself into where he can get some minutes.
Udoka tonight played 9 minutes. He had 4 defensive rebounds, which is good because one of his problems he's had in a limited time we've seen him is he's not been a particularly good defensive rebounder reacting to the ball. He did go 0 of 4 from the free throw line, and that 40% college free throw shooting, I don't want to make too big a deal, but for him to develop, you can't actually shoot 0. You have to make some free throws. We've watched Walker Kessler work on his. I have high hopes for Walker Kessler with that stroke, that those free throws are going to go in. He'll be a 65 to 70% free throw shooter in the NBA. I'm not sure I'm as confident with the stroke that Udoka Azubuike pushes up there that is an area where he can jump to 60 or 70%.
And you just hit it, push. I mean, it's not a shot. It's more of a push, and he's not very good at it. I'm not so sure. I'm with you that he's ever going to be any more than a 50% free throw shooter. Now, time on the floor, getting to the free throw line a lot more during the course of the year. You get better. We watched Rudy get better, and Rudy's goal ended up, he wanted to be a 70% free throw shooter. He got to 69, but he became better. So maybe, I don't know, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that push shot.
So Lauri Markkanen's first half, he goes 9 of 10. He scores 24 points. In the second half, it feels like he wasn't involved. He went 3 of 8, right? So he actually took 10 shots in the first half. He just happened to make all of them. He took 8 shots in the second half. It wasn't as though he went absent. Did Chicago do something differently to Lauri in the second half?
I don't think so. I think he sit for quite a few minutes, I think, in that third period, if I remember correctly. Don't have my...
Played 37 minutes tonight with that injury, so pretty impressive.
Yeah. So I just think that the offense of the Bulls started to, take over with the Jazz. The Jazz were taking it out of the net. The Bulls ended up shooting, 46% there from the field. And the big thing is getting to the free throw line, 25 free throws.
Not trying to pile on anybody in particular. I will say this. You don't have Mike Conley, so Colin Sexton moves in the starting lineup. So now you're asking more out of Talen Horton-Tucker and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. The two of them combined for 2 for 10 and 1 for 6 from 3 tonight. And Alexander-Walker did have 2 assists tonight. It has been a little bit of a struggle for Talen Horton-Tucker to really be a backup point guard. He was playing a lot of point guard when Mike Conley, but with Colin Sexton. Now he's really playing point guard, not just every possession, and that's been a little bit of a struggle for him.
It's a struggle, David, because he likes to play with the ball in his hands, and he's more of an offensive threat, an offensive player that likes to break it down, that type of thing, where if he was playing off ball, now he becomes a player that they're feeding it to, and, a little bit different role, and it's probably difficult for him to play that role.
Shout out to Kelly Olynyk, maybe one of our stars tonight. Another solid night for him, and his three-point shooting is fantastic. Chicago is a good defensive team, 9th best defensive team in the league, and they showed it. What's interesting about this is that they're a good defensive team because they force a ton of turnovers and they get a bunch of defensive rebounds. And they kind of did that tonight. They forced the Jazz into 14 turnovers, and they only gave up 9 offensive rebounds. They're not a particularly good defensive team against the shot, which showed. The crazy thing about this game to me is that the Jazz made 19 threes and shot 49% overall and still lost. Like it is hard to lose a basketball game when you make 19 threes and they make 6. But they pounded the Jazz at the rim. They scored 17 of their 21 field goals in the first half in the paint. They scored another 15 in the paint in the second half. They scored 32 field goals in the paint. The Bulls are usually last in the league in points in the paint at 43 points a game, and they scored 32 field goals, 64 points in the paint tonight was the final number. They went 32 of 50 there. So that kind of wraps up. All right, your 2 stars tonight. Everybody's welcome to vote on the live audience tonight as well. Ron Boone.
I'm giving it to the front line.
Lauri Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk.
Absolutely.
Wasn't the most complicated 2 stars we've ever had to have. Jazz have lost 5 in a row. Tonight, 114-107 against the Bulls. We hope to get up on the right track against the LA Clippers. They come to town on Wednesday. Tickets are available at UtahJazz.com. They've got Cyber Monday deals going on, so grab those and enjoy. Thanks very much for tuning in to POSTCAST. I'm David Lyon.